Good morning, and we are back once again with another episode of the Winnipeg Market Watch podcast. I am going to just start by saying we both apologize for how late this episode came out in the month. I think it goes without saying, April is busy season for both Denzel and myself, but also we were fighting illness, we were fighting all kinds of other matters, technical difficulties included. Making us have to unfortunately delay this episode until April the 26th, which is the latest we've ever released a monthly market update. So with that in mind, Denzel, I think this episode is going to be a little bit tonally different in terms of how we discuss the data that is now actually basically a full month old. And I think we're going to talk a lot more about what actually happened in the month of April in the context of what the last month's data was. I hope that makes sense for you guys at home. And once again, we're going to try to get back on a schedule where we release these episodes a little bit earlier so we can get as much as possible out of the data that's being provided to us. The real estate board doesn't do a great job of giving us mid-month updates. Of course, I can, to some extent, review the data that comes out. I have access to all of the raw numbers. It's just not compiled nicely for me. But I guess we'll just get started. Let's talk about what actually happened in March. So first things first, the big news with the March update was new all-time high, 463,800. That is up significantly from last month. That's a 3.64% jump in a single month. We've in the past had entire years that hadn't gone up that much. That leaves us 5.69% up year to date. And we are now firmly over 2.5% above our last all-time high. Denzel, I know April feels like, a blur, but also March, to some extent, to me, feels like ancient history.
Yeah.
So in the context of what we just lived through over the past 3 to 4 weeks, which I think was a lot of context, what was your reaction when you found out that the all-time high came in, and what do you think about it now?
Well, I definitely think it was early.
Yeah.
I think we could all agree that we were probably expecting this to happen somewhere in May or June to see this, but the fact that we've already hit it in April says a lot. But I would like to add, if we think about where we started to taper off and where pricing was then, like I think if you were selling property in December and January and you saw the pace in which things were selling and how much they were selling over, maybe you might have been able to see a world where it would have happened now. I'm talking about the all-time high happening. So yeah, obviously I'm really surprised. I'm happy that Winnipeg real estate is trending in that direction. For someone like me, it's great. But for the regular or the average home buyer, I think that it's 1,000 square foot bungalow is just getting further and further out of reach.
They are.
But that's not to say that there are areas in the city where you can still buy. And, I think the inventory is going to come in the next another month or so. Give it some time, and hopefully the first-time home buyers will have more options.
I would agree with that. And actually, in the context of what we've already lived through in April, I will say that the abundance of options is better than it's been in a long time. And I think what this really comes back to is that I'd say our 2026 market actually got started earlier than normal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought that the market would start in February or March when it traditionally does. I would argue that the 2026 market actually probably got going in December when we saw our first 1% move up on a month-over-month basis. Supply was tight then. It only got tighter into January. And we had, I'd say, a good 8 weeks, maybe even 12, of a real squeeze where there just wasn't anything to buy. And if you were one of the people that had a property to sell, like everyone was going to look at you, even if you were only 6 out of 10 of that particular buyer's criteria.
Yeah.
That's when we were seeing stuff priced more or less fairly, still getting 20, 25 showings. But we're going to get to more on pricing strategy and stuff later. But before we do, Denzel, we're going to have more data in about a week here.
Yeah.
Do you think we're still climbing? Do you think we got room to go? Like, I know how I feel, but I'm curious to hear it from you.
Yeah, I don't know if the runway is as long as what people might think. I think that me personally, I'm thinking that with everything that's transpired from January to today, and me observing what kind of inventory is coming to the market, I do feel like we might not see, another 30,000 or
Yeah.
something insane like that. Like I'm just looking at the price chart right now, and there's in the past couple of years, let's just say from December 24 to it looks like about January or February. I can't see the
Think about here.
exact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have
That,
been March, I think.
yeah.
That
So like
5% on
that,
the chart.
that's like a hockey stick up, and I don't think we have that much runway. Um, just because it gets to a point where the people in Winnipeg are, and this is just my opinion. The people in Winnipeg start to just go and say, you know what, like we're not going to spend that much on a 1,000 square foot bungalow right now. It takes time for people to adjust to the new reality,
Mhm.
especially if there's been people who have been losing bidding wars.
Yes.
Once we have the new buyers come in, like I have a younger brother who's like wanting to buy a house right now. This is a market he knows. And
Mhm.
so if he knows if the average 1,000 square foot bungalow is 463,000, it's 463,000. That's it's no different to him because it's his first impression of the market,
Right.
right? Whereas people in December they're looking like, man, we could have bought this for 425 like 3 months ago, 4 months ago when no one was looking.
It's true.
So um, yeah, I just think that the market there is going to be some. I think next month we are going to see another price increase, but it's not going to be an insane amount where your jaw hits the floor.
I would mostly agree. I still think we've got a few percent left to go here. I wouldn't be surprised if we peaked on a year-to-date basis somewhere around that 8 or 9% at the high for the year, but then clawed back to probably approximately where we are right now, maybe a little lower. Hard to say, but that would not be atypical of most years. Where I think the only real exception to that would have been 2024, where we didn't materially come down kind of at all, and 2021, where same sort of story. I don't think we're getting another 2022 where pricing totally fell off a cliff, but this to me, given that rates are normal low, not like pandemic low, the buyers are probably looking at this and thinking, hey, this isn't bad. We still need homes and we're going to have to pay what we're going to have to pay. The demand is still definitely exceeding the supply.
Yeah.
I just don't really know what else there is to be done. And so, as a guy that works with first time buyers, the issue that I'm finding an awful lot is these first timers are coming out with whatever budget they've got in mind. And it often happens that they feel like they got to spend 10% more than their actual budget to get the house that they wanted to get in their head. And so the question is always, do we make concessions on what we're buying or do we find more money? And so far, this is a big signal, by the way, pay attention. So far, the answer has almost always been we'll find more money. That means rates are too low. That means it's too easy to borrow because they're able to come up with it and they're able to justify it. Okay, that means money's loose right now. We were never having that conversation in 23. That was anathema. It was no, negotiate harder. Now, different market, circumstantially based on supply and pricing, things were totally different. It was a race to the bottom for a lot of that year. Anyway, keep that in mind. Finding money is easier than, giving up house. And very few people have been choosing give up on house. It's always been push for cash.
Yeah.
So we're a couple days away from the next Bank of Canada interest rate announcement. I personally have said for a long time that I don't think they're doing anything about rates for quite a while. They're in a rock and a hard place scenario. They can't really increase them because it'll cause too much pain to a lot of sectors, but notably the big markets, which have been suffering for quite a while. They can't really decrease them because they'll overheat everywhere else and screw things up even more. I don't think that it matters much. And I think that this is the least attention that buyers and realtors have paid to interest rates in quite a while. Yeah, I don't even see realtors posting the interest rate announcements like they used to these days.
Yeah. Yeah. The interest rate is definitely starting to have less and less of an impact on whether or not someone's going to buy or whether or not the realtors are going to do what they're supposed to and sell.
Exactly.
Right? Like this is more specific to Winnipeg. People want to buy houses. The markets, the things are being listed and things are being bought. and it's happening at a very fast rate, you know, rates aside.
That is true.
Yeah.
And I'll say this as well. For a long time, we've had pretty similar interest rates. It's been a while since the last cut. I think more than 6 months, possibly a year. That's enough time that when you keep sort of a stasis going, people aren't scared about timing a move because they think rates will go down or rates will go up. It eliminated the hustle. The predictability in a lot of ways has made people feel like, well, I'm in no hurry now, but I'm also comfortable to not take a big chance. And I think that is actually legitimately a part of what sent our market higher. Like most mortgages at this point, if you've got good credit and a reasonable amount to put down, you're probably looking at 4%. And a lot of people have been borrowing for less and locking it in. And as usual, folks, if you're actually a mortgage consumer, a home buyer, or an investor who's borrowing funds for projects, call or DM or reach out in any way you can. And I'll make sure that you're put in touch with the right people to get the right advice directly for your situation. But obviously, rates matter for both what Denzel and I get up to. So a long time ago, I predicted that the benchmark price would go to 472.
Yeah.
That was now about 18 months ago. We're kind of on the front doorstep
I
of that.
remembered what my prediction was.
We should check that episode, or if somebody who has been listening seems to recall, type it below for us.
Yeah.
I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure you were lower, and I'm pretty sure that we did in fact hit your prediction as the high for last year, but it just, for reasons unforeseen, we both ended up being right a little late, which still technically means we're wrong.
Yeah.
So fair enough. But I think about that sometimes. We're probably going to get there this year, I think, for a lot of reasons. But the big one is actually we've now had a few months where our average sale prices, which is different than the benchmark. The benchmark is a weighted average. The straight average sale price in Winnipeg has been rising for quite a while. And the supply numbers, again, in February, we talked a lot about how it was like the lowest it's ever been and tighter than even some of the pandemic years. In March, we talked a lot about how the supply situation improved, but not really materially. Whatever was added, the uptake was instant and immediate. Transaction volume isn't particularly high, but the level of listings and the ratios are actually still quite strong. So Denzel, from a ratio perspective, we noted that last year there were a few months where the ratios were really bad, mostly July, August, and September. But then the ratios really reflexively rebounded in the late season.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of projects possibly coming up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you think about the summer months at this point, given the backdrop that we've got here for anything you might get up to in the future.
Yeah, I think in the summer you have to be a little bit careful. There's when you're flipping. This is again to anyone who's like flipping houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit more detail that you need to pay attention to with regards to the exterior of the property.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of people, they think, we're just going to go do the interior, we're going to dial it in 10 out of 10, and then the outside just looks terrible, right? And so you need to make sure that you spend some money. Your renovation budget is going to go up because of that on the exterior. But particularly when now you're marketing in the summer market, you just need to have a better expectation of when your property is actually going to sell, because the way things trade in the summer is nothing like this the pace in which that you'll see in February or March. Right. There's less buyers because people are their focus isn't on real estate. They have summer plans with their families. They're at the cabin, they're at the lake, and so the priority to purchase a property isn't as high.
That's right.
On the plus side, the people that are actually going to look at your house are serious buyers. Typically, you're not going to just get any looky-loos just like trying to see what it's all about, right? Your house. But what I've also noticed in years past is just in the summer, there's actually more inventory. There's more competition. And so you have to be spot on with how you price your house. Expecting, 5, 6 offers, 7 offers on your house, and you price it as if, there's going to be some kind of a bidding war depending on where you are in the city, I don't know if that's the best strategy for you, even if you are the nicest among, let's say, 15 other listings, because well, there's 15 other listings to look at. And if the average price in that subcategory is close to what you're listing at, well, you got to think about the buyer and what options they have. They might look at your house and be like, it doesn't have this, but this one does, and it's only 20K more or 10K more. Like, let's just go and look at that. Like, you'll miss that showing entirely. Whereas if that same house were to come to market right now, I'm talking next week, you might get like 25, 30 showings because there's just no supply, right? So I have some property that's going to be available late into the spring market. I'm talking about June, late May. And what me and Keenan are going to do is we're just going to take a really close look at like what's available and then go from there in terms of how we price things. But anything that's going to land in the summer or that I'm renovating over the summer and I'm going to carry into the fall, I'm keeping that top of mind. My exterior, and then as well as what's going on in that exact area.
And I think that's really an important thing for everybody out there, whether you're an investor or a home seller, is just consider the strategy that you choose based on what else people could buy at that moment. And I for one think that it is largely the case that our market right now is more pocket heavy than it's been in a while. Mm-hmm. There are neighborhoods where for some reason it is just white hot. And there's other areas where I've been a little bit surprised at the lack of interest in certain properties, both my own and other people's. But that also is product dependent. If you've got a very standard home that's easy to understand for the average buyer, like 1,000 square foot bungalow with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a garage, which everyone can wrap their head around. You only need to see 3 of them before you know what you're looking at. That's a lot different than, say, a super unique split level in a niche area, a niche size with special finishings. Most people would have a hard time making a mental schema of what that property should be worth because it's probably the only one of the type these people have ever been into. Mm-hmm. And as 2 people who go into a heck of a lot of houses, it's sometimes important to step back and remember that most people don't go and walk through property all day. Yeah. Like they'll do it once every 15 years or something like that. So it's harder for them to understand. They've got their house, they've got their friends' houses, they've got their parents' house, and that's their model of real estate. The more unique your property is, the more careful you got to be. So for you half-story owners or you 3/4-story owners out there, or split-level owners especially, that's for you. You got to be careful with this sort of thing. Anyway, about supply, we'll have more on this probably next episode. I personally think, based on what we saw during April, that the supply narrative of there being no homes is likely going to change. I think that there was a lot of property certainly listed after the Easter weekend, and I could feel that. I saw the calls and the context change where agents went from basically sending a mass message out to all of us saying, okay, I have double-digit offers, like make your changes over text. If you didn't get this, I don't have your offer, et cetera, to getting one-on-one text and phone calls of, hey, I got a quiet offer date. You got anything for me?
Yeah.
And that type of call usually actually starts to happen in May, but it happened early this year. And I do think it's because the market started earlier this year. So about what Denzel said, where you've got to be more careful and you've got to be more thoughtful about how you price. That is exactly why. You don't want to be that guy that gets caught out pricing, expecting a 10 to 15% jump, and then you get one offer and it's asking price. That's just embarrassing and probably bad. So anyway, keep that in mind, folks. It's very important. Let's talk about individual neighborhoods here, if you so desire here, Denzel. We've got a few neighborhoods that I've noticed are particularly crazy. And I think that probably for those of you out there who have been shopping, I'm sure you found a few that were also kind of nuts. But the big one to me that I've spent a lot of time in is 1S Richmond West. This is an area that for a few years in a row was incredibly average. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it seemed like every other subsection of Winnipeg went off except for 1S. And this year it just rapidly caught back up. 110% absorption, pretty much everything in there selling for above asking, prices hitting astronomical highs. It's a variety area. There's stuff built in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and even virtually new. Not literally, but very close. And among that to me is the biggest surprise. But Denzel, you've obviously been involved in real estate a lot. Are there any areas notably to you that you stopped and went, wow, that was pretty surprising?
Well, I had the recent sale in South River Heights, and I thought that outcome was pretty good considering, the square footage and price we sold for. So that like River Heights is a different beast, right? There's a lot of people that just want to be in the area and just pay any price, regardless of like what it is. But I also think that like timing had a lot to do with our success on that property as well.
I agree.
Like when you're the only house literally on the market and you have people looking in that area every day, like, and you did a good job on the renovation, you're probably going to do pretty well, right?
No doubt.
And that's one way to make sure that your listing does as well as possible. Just don't compete with anybody, So
yeah.
Other than that, everything kind of again like Keenan and I spend so much time just dissecting the market and looking at every different neighborhood and seeing how they're performing. And so I think what I'm most I guess you could say surprised by is just how well Sergeant Park's been selling. 5C has been selling like hotcakes. And I do believe that is where, and I heard this from like someone who's not involved in real estate whatsoever. And this is kind of why I feel like it's been up and coming for years, right? But it's getting to the point where I don't know if it's up and coming anymore. It's here, and like that part of the city, people who are just finishing their university education and going into the workforce with whatever degree or education that they are looking in that area to buy because it's central enough where they can get to places like pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the houses are solid. Very rarely are you going to find one of those houses that have foundation issues. And I feel like St. James is kind of getting a little bit overpriced, I think, for depending on what you're looking at, right? Like a lot of people want to be in St. James. And so now agents, I feel like, are funneling people into Sergeant Park and there's just crazy prices. I think I saw a bungalow the other day sell for like just over 400,000 and it was and it was 750 square feet, fully renovated. I don't even know if I think it might have had a single garage. But like we're talking 400,000 in Sergeant Park on, I think it was Downing, and that's, I mean, whatever, like the times are changing, right? Like that area, it was bound to happen. But then you look at an area like West Kildonan too, and like prices are going up there, and that 250 to 300 price point is so competitive now that like, I don't know if I mean, I'd be interested to see what those areas are worth in like the next 10 years.
It is kind of cool to think about, and what you're alluding to there, where those I call them like the entry point areas, and every kind of 5 section. It's not a quadrant. I'm sure there's a word for it. Somebody, if you know, just type it down. The quadrant equivalent of 5 areas. Let's call it that. If you draw Winnipeg as a hub and spoke city, you divide it into 5 slices: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like the MLS areas. Every section has one, with the 1 section being Riverview, Lord Roberts, the 2 section being basically St. Boniface, maybe even St. Vital, the 3s being fundamentally Elmwood, East Kildonan, 4s being West Kildonan, and 5s being Sergeant Park, West End, St. James.
That's another area too. Riverview is just insane. Like anything in Riverview, Riverview, I don't know if that's necessarily a start area, but the Lord Roberts area,
Lord Roberts side,
people are just paying crazy prices over there too.
They are. It's all of those areas that I just mentioned basically uniformly are sitting pretty much as high as they've ever been in terms of pricing. The uptake is basically insane. And again, like a lot of these areas are fundamentally older homes. They contain variety like every other area, but most of them were built 1940 or earlier as sort of kind of like the base of the housing stock.
Yeah.
And all of them are climbing extraordinarily rapidly.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because of infill. I don't think it's because those damn flippers are jacking the prices up. I think it's just because anything livable in there is just as good as it'll get for that individual person's budget.
Well, I also think that Lord Roberts particularly is the neighborhood where I don't even know what the bridge is called. That bridge is Saint Vital and the South Osborne area together, right? So
Yeah.
2C, I think it is. That part of like the old Saint Vital.
Mhm.
That area is really expensive too now.
It is.
You're like in the 400s, like pretty easily. Like if you're looking to buy it for a house that works. So naturally, they're like, okay, we'll just go a little bit further, into South Osborne for people that want to be in St. Vital.
And I think that South Osborne for a long time had a reputation as an area that was kind of rougher, or that was where you didn't really want to be. But I think that reputation is now mostly out the window. I haven't heard anybody actually say that with any level of seriousness in a while. Every so now and then you'll get like, it's funny when it happens, but like someone's grandma will walk into an open house I'm hosting and go, where do they have their computer room and where's their phone? And it's like, okay, you're out of touch, but like, all right, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like you'll get those from time to time, but I'm talking like serious, knowledgeable, like market participants don't feel that way about the area anymore. But the pricing lingered as if it still was there. And I would say that that was probably the case for a good chunk of Elmwood, a good chunk of West Kildonan, especially the Scotia side. And it was don't get me wrong, each one of these areas still has their own niche things about it. Okay, like I live in Scotia, I'm familiar with the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. But broadly speaking, I still think it's underrated.
Yes.
And I think that the market is waking up to the fact that a lot of these areas that were considered like the undesirables, but not so bad that you'd like laugh at someone for seriously living there. I think that attitude is changing really quickly about a lot of them. People are getting invited over to their friends' houses in these neighborhoods and going, oh, that's not what I thought this was.
It's not bad.
Right? Like, this is actually pretty good. I quite like this.
Yeah, like 5A.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
5A is a different animal. And like, that is one of the most block by block areas I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Honestly, for folks, like if you want to live in 5A, like I can point you to spots in 5A that you will feel
right on
quite.
Victor, we could point you right there.
There are spots I can show you that you wouldn't know if you're in the north end or the west end, and there are spots I can show you that you might legitimately think you're in Wolseley or at least in Sargent Park.
Yeah.
And it's so pocketed in that section, and you got to be really careful with what you got. But yes, if you would like a deal in one of those, not desirable pockets, I can also steer you there. So anyway, that's a bit of an aside. But I think that the pricing activity in those areas that we've just been talking about, those really core fundamental starter areas, does have a cascading effect up the price categories as people sell out of there and they move into the next thing. Mm-hmm. A big anecdote, and this has been a great allegory for everybody shopping for a long time here. I had an Elmwood listing earlier in the year. It was a personal residence of these particular clients. They had relatively reasonable to low expectations for sale price of their property, and their reasonable to low expectations of their sale price deeply impacted their expectations of budget for the next purchase. Well, they got probably 50 to 70,000 more than they thought they were going to get on their actual sale of their starter home, which actually blew open what they could possibly buy. Now, they had actually secured a purchase at the price point they were hoping for anyway. So it didn't matter. We did have a discussion about like, okay, had we known that that was the case, would that have impacted your purchase? And they said in this case, like, oh, we're happy, but like it would have been cool, but who could have predicted that? Because when I published that particular sale, I got calls of people going, surely there's an error. There, you must have mistyped. No, I didn't. In fact, that was the deal as arranged.
Mhm.
So when you have that kind of dynamic and you have those kind of sellers who still need to live somewhere, they are now flush beyond the point that they thought they were. And that's why you see people comfortable paying increasingly ridiculous prices for homes because they feel like they received a ridiculous price for theirs. Um, so when you're a flipper and you get the perfect storm and like the elements just blend right and you're only a seller and you're not a buyer and you get a purchaser like that, um, you're laughing straight to the bank. It's just, you can't guarantee those kind of outcomes. And that's why it's still important to be careful in upward markets like we're in right now.
Yes.
And I think Denzel and I, for the last 2 to 3 years of doing this podcast and writing articles and being involved in the investor community, I think we've been pretty clear that restrain and refrain is the right attitude to take when everything is blowing up and you're hearing the stories of guys that accidentally made 100 grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not all G-Wagons and Rolexes and blocks out here, you guys. Like real estate's a tough business.
Yeah.
When it's too easy, that's when you got to be careful. When it
Yes.
starts to get hard, that's when like the real tenacious investors will start to pull ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, there's stuff on market that I'm seeing that are like fixer uppers, and they're going for really high prices. And me and Keenan, every time that we are kind of looking into a little bit deeper into those sales, we go, oh, they were probably thinking that was going to be the ARV, like a
Yeah.
285, and they're probably overshooting to 450 or 430, trying to ride the market, right? And so, I mean, while that's a strategy, it's extremely dangerous. And, you know, um, yeah, just be careful out there, guys. Okay, we actually started this podcast for that reason back in 2023. So we have personal experience investing in a market that was trending downwards. And so, yeah.
That is true. The idea to make this very series that we've been going on about for, I guess, well, we must be. I should check the episode count. We're pretty darn high. We're close to 30 episodes now. The entire point was because we realized there was really no voice anywhere talking about what to do in real estate when the market goes down. And all of the voices out there were pretty much repeating the same sort of messages out there. Buy, 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 borrow, 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 debt, 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 go, go, go. And not a single person said pump the brakes. And so, I've talked a lot about rentals and you've talked a lot about rentals as well. And I think my opinion broadly is pretty clear on rental property in general, but maybe we'll do a special episode one of these days where we really break down what it's like to own rental property for real. In 22, I think a lot of people got really excited about, the deal, the art of the deal.
Yeah.
Everybody liked to do the deal, but then when they actually got the asset at the end and they owned the thing, it suddenly didn't become fun.
Yeah.
And so that's a total aside, by the way, that has nothing to do with the market update. That's just that's a separate matter. So I won't rabbit hole that quite so far. But one thing back on track that I did want to talk about with you, Denzel, was some of the higher price categories. I'm talking specifically traditionally what we would have considered a $500,000 to $700,000 house is quickly becoming more like a $600,000 to $800,000 house.
Yeah.
As we see these people move up the price categories, in your opinion, either lived experience or from just dealing with other investors out there, how do you feel about people who are taking on these bigger, more expensive projects in a market like this right now?
That's a great question. First and foremost, I think that your speed is probably your best friend right now. Like if you have an opportunity to buy, this is again to speaking to the investors. If you have a possession date, let's call it in like middle of June or middle of May, and your plan is to renovate that property and have it ready for the market, you need to make sure that your renovation plan is dialed in and you know who you're hiring for each part of that renovation. Because as you get deeper into the year, and let's say you happen to list into the summer, unless you have done an amazing job on that property, it might be tough for you to capture what you thought you could get, back in February or March when you were doing the due diligence on that property, right? So I just think speed's your best friend when you're working on those bigger deals, I would say, and just making sure that you have a really good plan in place and that you're not wasting any time.
Right.
But also to be careful too, right? All it takes is there's a lot of things going on in the world that I think that in the first time when the market corrected on us, like, and it was like 15 points to the downside, guys, I was not paying attention personally to what was happening around me. I was so caught up with the day to day and just the business in general, and I was kind of oblivious to, market shifts. But they are real, and they can happen in the worst way in a small market like ours in Winnipeg.
Yes.
Like I think we can't forget that, like BC and Ontario are having a really tough time right now. And that is when people think about Canada and they're looking from the outside in, that is the stories that they see on their headlines or headline in the news, sorry, is Ontario and BC. We just happen to be lucky that Winnipeg particularly has been performing so well. But again, like all it takes is something to change, right? And the supply to hit the market, and you got 5 or 6 deals on the go, and you bought them for too much, right?
That's not good.
And that's not good, right? And so while it's I can see why someone can be aggressive right now, but don't lie to yourself into doing deals is basically what I'm trying to get at. And I've been there. You're really trying to pencil a deal, and you're like, well, maybe we could like save here and do this, and I'll manage to rent them myself and whatever, just so that you can do a deal, and that is not smart, right?
Don't be a pig.
Yeah. Like don't get too greedy. Do the ones that make sense. If you only end up doing, and I have some friends that I talk to regularly, and some of them have a number that they want to get to in the amount of flips that they want to do. I want to do 10 flips. I want to do 20 flips this year. And I'm just like, it's not about the volume. It's about the quality of the deal. And if you only do 5, and that's all you can find with all the marketing that you're doing and everything that you're putting into finding leads, then you're doing 5 that year.
Yeah.
Like then that's just the year. Because business is like that, in any other industry that you find yourself, there's slow seasons, there's slower years than others, there's better years than others. And that's just business, right? It's so, like you can't force it.
100%. I honestly, we're going to clip that, and that's going to be on Instagram, because that's really something I think a lot of people need to hear. And a lot of the time, like when you guys reach out to me, which I'm glad you do, by the way, and thank you to the ones who do it politely and respectfully. And you tell me, like, I have a goal of flipping 15 homes in the next 12 months. Like, this is the kind of thing I want to tell you, but I only have so many words. Do what makes sense. And it's better to do them correctly than to hit the goal but fail.
Yeah.
I would rather see you guys make a ton of money, but not be able to say, oh, I actually achieved my 15 house goal. I only did 6, but I still profited great, and I learned a lot of lessons, and I was safe the whole time, and I wasn't waking up at 3 a.m. in cold sweats.
I think there's something, and this is just totally not related to the podcast. I think there was something that clicked for me in 2023, and just like all of the experience that I've got to today, that, I always feel like, if I'm not doing deals, I'm not working.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have a lead in my pipeline that like, I don't have a contract I'm about to sign next week. Like, I feel like, oh man, I suck. Right. And obviously, like, that's just like the high performer in me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's something to be said about when you become a more mature business owner, you have to understand that, like, it's okay to feel like you're not busy and to just deal with the current business. And then it actually gives you a moment to refine some of the systems that you're trying to work on.
What you're referring to is called working in your business versus working on your business.
Yes.
So in those moments where there isn't a live deal and you're like, oh no, like my business, like I should be working as my
I should go buy
operator
some
self.
houses in
Yeah.
4A.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
I need to do
Yes.
some. I need to do some deals.
Yeah.
We got some contracts out right now. We got some offers.
Well, there's offers out. There's live deals out here. Like conditions are getting satisfied, properties getting listed, and like as a realtor, it's different too. Like as an investor, I understand that you guys eat with your deals, right? Like you need to be buying, but also you need to be executing. And when you
Yes.
purchase those properties, you need to finish them, and you need to finish them quickly.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. All good. But as a realtor too, like to some extent, we're in the same thing. It's like, hey, if I have, a situation where I've got a bunch of listings coming up, but at that present moment, I only have a few, or maybe tough to sell ones that just naturally are going to take a little longer, or whatever, or my active buyers are just not able to put it together, something like that, I'll feel like, oh man, like I haven't actually sold anything in a little while. But then all of a sudden, listings get put up, offers get written, contracts get signed, and then 1 week it's like boom, 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 there's 6 sales.
Yeah.
Like it's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't control that. That's the industry. There's going to be pockets of that. If you can't handle it, get out. That's real estate.
Yeah.
Go be a banker or something,
Yeah.
man. I don't know. And I say that respectfully because, like, I try to not over romanticize real estate. And by the way, for those of you listening who have considered becoming a realtor, this is something that we're going to wrap this up soon. By the way, for those of you who are pressed on time. For those of you who have reached out to me about becoming a realtor, I have tried for years to be as brutally honest about what that actually looks like as possible. And I've told everybody straight up what my day looks like. I've told them all of the myths, all of the realities of this. And often I think I've saved people from a lot of disappointment. I've also inspired people to join in and like get involved.
Yeah.
And this is going to be my now once an episode shout out that if you are a realtor listening to this right now and you're licensed in Manitoba, give me a call or send me a DM about coming to Judy Lindsay. We have a truly sick deal here. And you guys will get to work hand in hand with me and my people, and we can have a great time at our office. And if you're seeing this on Instagram, drop a comment and say, yeah, Keenan Brown, Judy Lindsay, let's go. Keenan Brown, Judy Lindsay, let's go. Anyway, if you're a brand new realtor or an aspiring realtor, I'd love to talk to you as well. The last thing I want you to do is spend a bunch of money only to realize that it's not a good fit. And I'm very proud and thankful that I have mentored a lot of people to be really successful in this business. But I have also advised people who I don't think it would be a good match for to maybe steer clear. So nonetheless,
I'm going to get my license.
You're going to get your license. Yeah, that's a great idea. All the things you have going on, that is a great idea.
Holy crap.
Anyway, so folks, I think unless Denzel has anything really, any more knowledge bombs to drop, this is actually, I think, one of Denzel's most highlight heavy episodes of 2026.
I was cooking today.
Yeah, you were. That was a good one. Unless you've got anything to add, I know that I'm satisfied with where we're left here. I'm actually really excited to get back on this podcast with Denzel, hopefully in another week or two to discuss the next data set.
Yeah.
We want to be doing these closer to the beginning of the month than the end. It's just circumstantially, as I mentioned, it's got tough. But any closing thoughts, final words, Denzel?
You know what? I think we covered a lot over in this episode, and I think that if I could leave one thing with anyone, because we always have new listeners and stuff like that. If you're just getting started in real estate, whether it's the idea and you're just trying to put it all together, don't be too eager to get into the market. Really know what you're getting into before you do decide to jump in. I would say if you got $250,000 or $200,000 and you are wanting to buy a property, just get the reps in, do run your numbers a few times before you actually buy something, because we'll probably end up buying it when you show up.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you guys in the next one. You have yourself a wonderful day, and stay safe out there, everybody.